of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turns Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I'm going to say thank you, Lord. You're everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of flesh. Send down your warriors with the hello, they carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we decide? No weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer. Rise up and conquer them. I am a man, I am a champion, I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live stream, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram or wherever you may be this morning. A very special good morning to you. It is a bright and beautiful Tuesday morning. I had to make sure I process that first so I didn't say Monday. But it's a beautiful Tuesday morning in the Spice Isle of Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. And of course, we are always happy and grateful, not just to be living in the Spice Isle, but of course to be alive, to be well, to be able to boast of the fact that we are currently standing strong as a nation against COVID-19. And of course, we are excelling and thriving as a people, even in the midst of this uncertainty. And of course, with me in studio this morning, I have my co-host, Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Pleasant good morning to you, Miss Duncan. Hope that your sort of extended weekend was well spent. You look
yes, it
fresh.
was.
You look rejuvenated. You look well rested. Your face says it all, and I want to say a very good morning to all our listeners. Thank you again for having the time, making the time, and being patient enough to join us, whether it's by radio or on any one of the platforms. We are always grateful to have you present. We don't take for granted that you would always be there. There are so many other things that can occupy your time and attention, but we're grateful that at least you believe in listening to Hard Talk. You believe that you can get information that is relevant, that is truthful, that has a basis for us to say. So thank you. I do hope that all of you listeners had a pretty exciting weekend. I did see quite a number of vehicles, especially bikers. Whenever there's a holiday around, the bikers organize themselves, various groups, and they're always out riding. So I saw quite a bit of them yesterday. I presume there was a lot of people heading towards Bathway. There was a lot of traffic up my neck of the woods. But I have not heard of any incidents or accidents, and I really do hope everybody did get an opportunity to enjoy themselves and do whatever it was they wanted to do while they stayed within the safe zone, while they were responsible, as Ms. Duncan would oftentimes say, understanding the fact that we are not yet totally out of the woods as it relates to COVID-19, that we're seeing still right next door to us, Trinidad and Tobago, and so people are dying regularly. And having said that, I want to publicly send my sympathies out to, Junior Andrews, Junior Dowling Andrews. Who lost his father only last Thursday in Trinidad and Tobago because he came down with the COVID and died in hospital one day after. Well, the same day. I guess he was brought in the Thursday, and by Thursday night he didn't make it through. It's regrettable. And so it hits home for people from my neck of the woods, the La Poterie, Tivoli, Conference, Paul's area up that side, who has known Dowling Senior, Dowling Andrew Senior quite well. Bison, as we used to call him, really stout, heavy set kind of an individual, strong man, Who would have believed that,
And I had the opportunity to meet him.
Yes, you did.
I met him.
No.
And very, very funny guy. I mean, I can see where Junior gets all his antics from.
Yes.
Very funny guy, full of life,
Yes,
and it's
lovely, man. And so
quite unfortunate.
So it hits home really when, people whom you know, people whom you're accustomed to, people whom, as you've said, is so lively, so full of life, and then you hear suddenly they get cut down, they get taken away. You don't get the opportunity to speak to them, to see them again, because COVID has claimed them. I mean, it should definitely put a question mark right at the front of us, asking, at this point in time, what should I do? Should I take my vaccine or not? Because it has been proven. The evidence are there from the experience in Seychelles, in Israel, some of these places, even United Arab Emirates, where some people, based on a bit of information that I have collected, in the United Arab Emirates has actually taken a third dose of the vaccine. Because there was a strain that attacked them, and while the people who have been vaccinated, like we have seen in the Seychelles and other places, did test positive again for COVID, but had no severe symptoms. None of them were hospitalized, no death from among them. There were some people from the United Arab Emirates that felt, after examination, that the antibodies, the immune system was not robust enough. And the medical professionals deemed that they could have taken another dose, and some of them has taken a third dose of the vaccine to further strengthen the immune system so that they can fight the virus.
And they have been taking Sinopharm. Sinopharm is the Chinese.
Yes, that's
vaccine
in UAE.
Right.
But the point that I really want to bring across is the evidence is already showing, as opposed to those anti-vaxxers who are putting all kind of thing out, like a lady who I encouraged. She did take ours on Friday, and then she called me so upset and frightened that someone told her, "Oh, now you take it, you have 4 more years to leave."
Oh, God.
I said, but come on, let's be sensible now. There has not been a COVID-19 vaccine on the market or being used. So they have been in laboratory trying to develop and so. But the first usage of a COVID-19 vaccine was in January of 2021.
Right.
Based on all of the history that we know. Nobody before January 2021 took a vaccine for COVID-19 virus.
Right.
Now, where is that evidence? Whom can that person show you? Who they knew 4 years ago that took the vaccine and they died as a result of the vaccine?
Yeah.
And then she said, but wait, Mr. Bola, you're right. I said, so sometimes when we hear things, before we walk ourselves up, let's walk it out in our minds.
Yeah.
Because you walk yourself up and you're so worried, all of what you tell me, but look at what this man meet me and tell me, no, I have 4 years. I say, well, if you don't want to believe me and you think he's so correct, go ahead, start preparing your casket or coffin, whatever you have, and make your arrangement with your undertaker. Because I don't know. I mean, while the vaccine is not a cure for all ailments,
right,
what it does, and it has been said so clearly, I mean, no one is trying to hide the facts. All of the experts have said what the vaccine will do, not prevent you from getting COVID, but prepare you for when you get it, so that your system would be in a much better place to deal with it. And it would definitely avoid you getting severely sick, to be hospitalized and have to go on respirators and things, and the possibility of death. That's what it says.
And I want to bring into focus some of the countries who have had a lot of vaccination in terms of most of the adult population being vaccinated. And we always use Seychelles as an example, because they have had full vaccination, or they have achieved what they've been trying to achieve in herd immunity. And persons are saying, oh, well, look at what happened in Seychelles. I even think I heard the leader of the opposition mention it in Parliament. But I always say, and that's why we need to be very responsible in our statements, when we are bringing across a point to individuals, we need to ensure that the point we are bringing across is well researched, and that we bring across a point in a way that persons understand. When we make general statements like that, it leaves people to make their own interpretation and analysis of what you are trying to say based on how they feel about the situation. So persons listening to that statement would say, okay, well, look, the leader of the opposition say, well, look at what happened in Seychelles. But what happened in Seychelles? What was the situation in Seychelles? And why is it different? Why do we have to now look at Seychelles as an example? It is simply because, yes, they are a prime example of what the vaccine is expected to do, what the vaccine is expected to accomplish, which is to ensure that the population becomes protected. Not protected from COVID-19, but protected from what COVID-19 can do to you, and protected from death as a result of COVID-19. And I think that is a perspective that people need to start looking at. The vaccination is not meant to keep COVID-19 at bay. It is not meant to just allow COVID-19 to deteriorate from your environment or in your circle. What it is meant to do is to ensure that you are vaccinated to the point where your cells do not become hijacked by the virus, causing you to become severely ill or causing you to die as a result of getting COVID-19 or having some COVID-19 related illness. For example, and I want to bring into focus India, where they have something right now called the black fungus, Mr. Bola. It seems to be as a result of COVID-19. And I want people to understand that, because that is now yet another disease or ailment that is being caused by COVID-19. And this is very it's very important to note, because it's a fungal infection that affects affects your nose and your eyes and sometimes your brain and so on. And they have seen not only can it's just a fungal infection, but it can lead to death as well. So here you have another thing caused by COVID-19 that can most likely take your life. And I want people to understand that. I am not saying to, and I don't think anybody is saying to you, oh, just take the AstraZeneca because that's what is available. Or don't wait for another vaccine. Nobody is trying to force you into doing that. But I think what we have to look at and what we have to put into perspective is the when. You know, when will what you are waiting for become available to you? And, you know, I had a conversation with an individual yesterday who said he spoke to a doctor in the US who is telling him, oh, well, don't take the AstraZeneca. And I said to this individual, I said to him, I said, is that doctor vaccinated? He said, yes. I said, what did he use to get vaccinated? He said, Pfizer. I said, okay. So he sent in Pfizer for you to get vaccinated? He said, no. I said, so if you don't take the AstraZeneca, which is available to you, and you catch COVID and you die, who will your family blame? They can't blame the doctor because the doctor only gave you advice based on his feelings. You know, you decided on your own that you were not going to do it. Now, that doctor is protected from COVID-19 because he has taken his vaccination and you are not protected. You know, sometimes we have to be smart about the things that we do and the things that we listen to. And of course, as we always say here, the motive behind the message. What is this person trying to accomplish by saying this to me? How can what they have said to me affect my life in general? You know, so we have to look at these things, and I want to encourage as many people as possible, and I will continue to encourage. It is up to you. It is your decision whether you want to get vaccinated or not. At the end of the day, nobody forcing you. Nobody is putting a gun to your head and saying, hey, listen, go and get vaccinated tomorrow or else I'm going to shoot you. Nobody is saying that to you. At the end of the day, the decision remains yours. Now, people may argue, well, my employer say if I ain't get vaccinated, then I can't work. However, it is also the employer's right to say to you, to protect my business, these are the requirements. I mean, how do we make a balance out of that?
Well, we have said sometime before when we attempted to, you know, well, we just sort of glossed over it a bit with, in layman's term, with what we understand from the law. And we did promise that we'll try to get a legal mind. I've spoken to one young lady already who is a legal practitioner. She has promised that if she can find the time, if within her schedule sometime soon in the week or weeks upcoming, she would really love to offer herself to give some sort of explanation or to simplify this whole issue of rights. Individual rights versus collective rights, and you know, workers' rights and employees' rights, and you know, there's so much rights, no left.
So many rights.
Yeah. So she will try her best if she can, but we can also seek to see if we can find other people. Like, I think it's of extreme importance.
It is.
That someone from a legal perspective, a legal standpoint, someone who understands and can unfold what the law intends, or what the law is asking, what the law is expecting us to do so, because this thing about who can say and who cannot say and who can do and who cannot do is something that we need to finalize. But it's really important, and I need to come in and congratulate all of the nurses and the other volunteers, because my understanding is that there are a lot of other people who are not within the service but are volunteering their time. Students or former students or workers at the SGU, I understand. Some of them, because there are a lot of clerical work that needs to happen. It's not just about getting your arm rubbed with some cotton, and then you take your jab, you get a tip, and you disappear. There's a lot of information that they need to collect and to be able to store properly, because no one knows exactly when there may be a need to refer to those. So you need people constantly throughout the day to be taking that kind of information from patients as they're coming. So we want to commend and congratulate them. We want to commend all of the nurses at the various vaccination points, whether they're at health centers, at the National Stadium, football and athletic, or wherever they are making a difference. They're trying to provide for humanity an opportunity for greater survival from this COVID. And those who have actually done it, and people like myself who have had both doses, hooray to you. I think from some time ago, I heard the minister, was it the minister or someone else, speaking to numbers, and did indicate that there was as much as 10,000 people, I believe, already in Grenada who had the complete shots.
Right.
Both,
I could
1 and 2.
I can pull it up.
You can pull it up.
They
there.
usually do a dashboard every.
But that is not where we need to be. The belief is that from the health sector, from the ministry and others who are concerned, the COVID-19 committee, they think by now we should have doubled that number. Mm-hmm. But I still want to commend and congratulate those who went forward, those who decided that, it is our best chance, of returning to some level of normalcy, of seeing, the tourist ships back, of seeing the hotel workers back to work, seeing the taxi drivers being able to fend for themselves and make a little living. Because, as we've said before, the issue of vaccination is not just one for medical purposes. It is, and I think that's the first and foremost reason why people must go and take it, to make sure that medically we are sound, we are secured, we are safe. But there are other positive effects for you doing it. The fact that
socioeconomic reasons as well.
Socioeconomic reasons.
The last update we received was that of the 22nd of May. And from that update, we have had 7,722 23.
That was
persons,
last week Friday.
Yes, for the second dose of their vaccine. I want us to also put into perspective, and I wanted to mention this as well this morning. Barbados. And it's one to note. Barbados currently, Mr. Bola, has vaccinated 76,361 persons within the state of Barbados. But most importantly, 53,000 people
are complete.
Have received complete vaccination. And that is, to me, that is remarkable, because it means that they are a step closer to herd immunity. I mean, they have about, 200,000+ people, which means that they have to maybe accomplish about 150,000 vaccinations before they can say that they have had herd immunity. But the fact that there are 76,000 people in Barbados who have been vaccinated, I mean, it is something to talk about. It is something to mention. And I think people need to put into perspective, because I do hear people talking about, oh, look, this person died of a blood clot in this country or that country. And I want people to really understand this. The countries that we are speaking about have had millions of people vaccinated, right? Let's look at Barbados, for example, with 76,000 people who have been vaccinated. 50-something of those people received full vaccination. Grenada, 16,000 plus people, 17,000 plus people received vaccination. 7,000 of those fully vaccinated. We have not had a single report of death. We have not had a single report of blood clot complications, whether it's here or anywhere in the region. And when we are looking at these issues, we need to look at numbers, because numbers are important. When you speak about these things, numbers are important. And yes, you will have people who develop complications. They never said, I don't think anywhere ever has it been said that these vaccines or any medication at that matter, you won't have any complications. As a matter of fact, when you open a box of Panadol, there's a little paper inside that lists all of the side effects. When you open any medication, there is a list of side effects. That does not mean that it is guaranteed that you will receive those side effects, yet we still take them. I'm sure if you ask somebody now, what are the side effects of taking Panadol, they would say to you, drowsiness or dizziness, because that's the only one they know. But there are more side effects than that. Some side effects even worse than, make you want to wonder, should I really take this? But you outweigh the benefit.
The benefit
outweighs the risk.
The risk, yes.
You understand?
Or whatever problem
you have. And that is what we need to look at. Does the risk outweigh the benefit, or does the benefit outweigh the risk? And this is how you have to approach it and how you have to look at it. And I understand that there are people out there who are skeptical, but be skeptical with facts. The nonsense you hear sometimes, you wonder if it's worth being skeptical over.
That is if you're analytical in your thinking.
True.
Because some of us don't even stop for a moment to really think about what we have read or what we've just heard.
Yeah.
We just hear it and we take it wholesale.
Yeah.
Who it's coming from? Why is that person saying that? What evidence do they have?
And what's the motive?
What motive? What is it they want to achieve from doing that? These questions some of us don't ask. Absolutely not. We just take it, and we run with it. And we go and we share it. And we create more panic than anything good. But for those who have already done and taken, we say kudos and we say thank you. And we say encourage others, encourage friends, encourage neighbors, encourage those who you hang out with, work colleagues and other people. Because it is important. If we were like Barbados and had 70,000 people taken, then we are happy. We would have by now touched herd immunity.
Of course.
But we are a long way from that.
Yeah,
so
we would really have, because I think we need like 75,000 people.
Thereabout.
To achieve herd immunity. So we would have been in a good place, Mr. Bola. We would have been looking forward right now to Carnival in August. For those who look forward to Carnival.
Well, I don't know if there won't be Carnival, so I think you're preempting something. Is there something that I don't know? You've been speaking to CDC. Yes, Carnival Development.
Well, you're looking. We're looking at the numbers, and in order to have these kind of massive social activities in which we can allow people into the country to partake, or even allow people in large numbers within the country to partake in these activities, you need to achieve herd immunity. So basically, the vaccinated are meant to protect the unvaccinated people, and in order for that to happen, we need to have at least 80% of the population,
the adult population
vaccinated, and I think we are very far from that.
We are
very far from that, and we are almost already in June. I do not see. I would hope for it, Mr. Bola. This is not me saying I don't see us doing it, but the way things are going, at the rate at which we are going, where there is so much, and I don't even want to say uncertainty, because most of it is not uncertainty. Most of it is just unfounded gossip going on. I don't see people making a conscious decision to be vaccinated before August.
Well, I hope that would change and change quickly.
I hope so too.
With the kind of information that is available every single day.
Yeah.
Factual.
Yeah.
Truthful, coming from the experiences of what other countries are going through.
Yeah.
I hope that would be sufficient.
Well, Trinidad, as you say that, Trinidad yesterday.
Touch people's life.
Trinidad yesterday recorded 250 new cases and 15 new deaths. And I have a lot of family in Trinidad, and I'm sure that every Grenadian has one or two people that is a family member in Trinidad. Or at least know somebody, have a close relationship with somebody in Trinidad. And it hurts. It's a shock. When I heard about Dowling on last week, you never really expect to hear hear these things. You know, when you hear of somebody that you know that has died from COVID, somebody that you've been close to, or even if you're not close to the person who has died, but you're close to a family member of theirs, it still hits you hard. It still rubs you the wrong way. So, I mean, it's difficult to really understand why we're really playing Russian roulette with COVID. Honestly,
I don't know. You don't even have to play with it at all. It must be Russian roulette. It could be wrongdoers. It could be, there was a thing people used to play along now called moral. It's moral. They still do that.
Moral, yeah.
Children still do.
I don't know if a lot of children do it.
I don't remember the last day I saw them doing that. Spinning top and playing marble and marbles
and skipping and them kind of things.
I haven't seen that happening in a long while. But I mean, you just don't play no game whatsoever with COVID. Yeah. None. Because it's not funny. Yeah. It's going to attack you anyway. He doesn't care your color. He doesn't care which political party you support. He don't care whether you reach your post. So your social standing don't matter. Your religious obligation doesn't matter. Whether you're a church goer or you are a scribe or a Pharisee, it don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It attacks you once you allow it to, once you leave your system open for it. So that's why we're encouraging. So far, vaccination is the best thing that can keep it at bay.
You know that song that Rihanna did, Russian Roulette, and it speaks very openly about playing games. And in the song, she says, close your eyes, count to 10. And then I get a scary thought. It means he's here, which means he's never lost. And it simply says that I'm playing Russian roulette with COVID. I'm deciding that, okay, well, it's going to go away eventually, or somebody's going to get vaccinated and that's going to protect me, or I'm going to wait. It's basically playing Russian roulette. But it doesn't negate the fact that COVID is still around. COVID will continue to be around. COVID continues to take lives. And I think that's the point that people are missing. Whether you believe in COVID, Mr. Bola, whether you believe in the vaccination, whether you believe it's a good vaccine, a bad vaccine, it's created too fast, it hasn't gotten enough trials, whatever your belief is, does not take away from the fact that COVID kills. It's as simple as that. Because you don't believe in COVID does not mean that you cannot get infected with COVID.
And die from it.
Die from it. Because you feel like this vaccine is not the one you want to take and you want to wait for something else, doesn't mean that COVID is going to wait before it infects you, before it takes your life. COVID doesn't abide by any of our rules. It does what it wants to do.
We can't govern it.
We cannot govern it.
We can only defend it.
Or defend ourselves against it.
Yes.
Prepare
ourselves to defend.
So I don't see how we can put this in any other way. I mean, the most that we could do is when we come here every day to continue to encourage, to continue to advocate, for persons to protect themselves. And yet, we still see persons breaking the protocol, heavily so. Persons are still not wearing masks. Persons are still traveling on transportation without masks. And the funny thing is, when or if government decides, like Trinidad, where you're supposed to only travel with 50% capacity on public transportation, if government decides to do that here, like we've seen before, there will be a public issue or a public outcry that more needs to be done for the busmen, or that busmen need more support, or all of that. But yet still the persons making the noise are not advocating for people to wear their masks.
But they're not even wearing it themselves. They're not even vaccinating themselves. So they're not leading by example. But they expect things to get better. They expect, when I recalled when the BBC did that interview with that journalist of Indian origin that reports for them, have been doing so for many years. And the question was asked, what do you think went wrong in India? Where did that second wave come from? What caused it to have affected India in such a negative way, so hard, hit so hard? And you know what her response was? We became complacent. We became callous.
Yeah.
We felt that we had COVID under control. We thought, we had everything in place, that we did everything we were supposed to do. Our numbers fell.
Yeah.
And unsuspectingly, it just swept through the nation, a nation of almost 1.4 billion people, 1.3 something billion. I mean, people lying on hospital floors, some people stocked up in front of the building, can't even get a space inside of it because the health system has collapsed.
Yeah.
So it tells us, if we too become complacent, if we start acting callously, as some of us have been doing, mind you, there are many Grenadians still who are upholding the protocol, who understand that there is still a big risk, even though we have no positive cases presently. I don't know if anything happened over the weekend, but as far as I know, up to last weekend, there were no cases.
Up to the 22nd.
Yeah, even if we know all of that, there must always be towards the front of our mind, there is a possibility it can be tomorrow, it can be later today, it can be anytime. Because all it takes, and I cannot overemphasize that fact, all it takes is one contaminated individual, one person to slip through the crack, one positive case getting out into the community, and after that you have community spread, one sharing it to the other. But you know, if all of us would have been vaccinated, even though a situation like that occurred, we would all be in a better place, because our bodies, our immune system will be a lot more robust, a lot more prepared. And my understanding is that once the COVID attack a properly well vaccinated individual, it weakens, and then the strain leaving that person, or the virus leaving that person and going to another is a weaker strain. And if that other person is vaccinated, it becomes weaker until
and that's
eventually
what immunity is meant to do. It's meant for
eventually you get rid of it.
Yeah.
So if we want to get that fear and that stigma, that worry about COVID out of our mind for good, we have to get vaccinated.
Absolutely.
Because for all of those who are saying to you, well, oh, it has a magnet in it, it's the mark of the beast, it has a chip for them to see your business, it's this, it's that, you're going to turn a monkey, you're going to die in 4 years, you go whatever. With all of that, what the skeptics are saying, none of them can tell you what the alternative is. What else do they have in place? What do they know about? What have they created?
Yeah.
So when they tell you no vaccine, this is what you should take instead. They have nothing.
Yeah.
They are as open and as defenseless as anyone else as it relates to COVID-19. So we really just have to start thinking deep as a people, and understanding, hey, it's a personal choice and a personal decision. Yeah. But in making that choice and that decision, be open to all of the facts that are before you. Those that well, facts will always be facts. And fiction. So you look at the fiction, you listen to it, but you also check the facts out. Yes? Yeah.
And I want to just tell the people where vaccinations would be this week, because I want us to shift the conversation just a little bit from vaccinations. So today, Tuesday, they're going to be at the Carriacou James Stadium, Gate B.
That is the side towards the sea where the vendors are. Yes?
Right.
So for those who don't know.
They're going to be at all health centers as per usual. Remembering that when you're going to a health center, or when you are choosing a health center to get vaccinated, you would want to call first to make an appointment. Taking into consideration that they want to do it in batches of 10. So you have to call to make an appointment to make sure that there is an open appointment. And there is the St. Augustine Medical Services, that's SAMS, and St. Paul's, and they are vaccinating from 12 to 3. So that's a 3-hour window in which they're conducting vaccinations. I'm not sure if you have to call to make appointments there as well. I'm assuming that you do, so you might want to call first. But at the National Stadium, the Carriacou James Athletic Stadium, you would want to just show up. You can just show up and get vaccinated, and they will continue that way all the way to Friday, with the exception of SAMS, who will only vaccinate on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 3. Other locations, vaccination locations, would be vaccinating from 9 to 2 to 2 p.m. So please, I am asking kindly, as we do here every day, that you take that into consideration and get vaccinated. Mr. Bola, we changing the conversation just a little bit.
Yeah, but just before you change, I just want to hail out a few people, boy. They keep saying to me, boy, oh God, Mr. Mears, good morning to you all day in Carriacou, and your good friend, Miss, what's her name now, Skylark Mother. Her name just slipped me, and I want to big up my friend, man, who works out there with Carriacou, the Calypsonian from Telescope. You don't know his name? You and him had a conversation sometime and you promised him some documentation, which you never gave him, and he never, ever forget that. Anytime we have a conversation, but that lady.
Call me, because I think I lost his number.
Yeah,
I think that was.
But I'm reminding you now, so that is no longer an excuse, Miss Duncan. So, I just want to hail up. I have my Rastafarian brethren from Belmont in St. Patrick's, not Belmont in St. George's. Ardent vegetable farmer, and Miss McLean and Nelson out there, and Sister Norma out in Tivoli, and the Lewis brothers in La Poterie, and the girls down in Pearls, and all of those all over the place who listens, and they say, Mr. Bola, man, I just hear you every day, and every time they see me, they want me to know that they listen. They don't call, they don't send in a message, but they listen. Aaron Pierre in Pearls, who is one of our good listeners too, and there's several others. For those who I ain't mentioned, I don't want anybody to feel bad, and I'm really wary of calling names because you can't remember everybody every time, and then if you call someone who doesn't call others, it seems as though you are favoring some. No, we value every single listener to this program.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether you are a first time or you have been listening from time memorial, we value you. We value the fact that you can spend time to sit, or you can open up your radio, or you put on your computer while you're doing your other household chores, whether you're cooking or you're cleaning, and you're listening to Hard Talk. We value, even at a greater extent, for those who call and those who sending something on the live or WhatsApp comment. We accept those things, and as we oftentimes say, you don't always have to agree with us, but you can have a point that makes sense that you want to share. We appreciate those things. We read them if we can, we just read them for ourselves and say, but maybe, that person, from the angle which they're looking at this issue, maybe they're correct, or maybe we need to look at it from that angle as well. But, this year ranks and others, very, very good morning. My good friend there in St. David's, who also, within the Carriacou family, there are a lot of people who listen to us. I have a good friend, a girlfriend from St. David's that works with Carriacou and listens, and she always wants me. So I want Miss Jacob to know, stop calling me sweetie and honey. She knows you well, or you don't live too far. She say, listen, I'm going to deal with Miss Jacob. Why is she always calling you honey and sweetie? What happened to her? She mad? I say, no. She's just a loving senior citizen. So, all our folks, very, very, very pleasant good morning to all of you again. And I do hope that all of you whom we have been encouraging would see wisdom in the fact that you should take your vaccine, because it is important to save lives, to save you, to save your family, and to save Grenada as a whole.
Yeah. This morning, Mr. Bola, what I really want us to touch on is the case of Predia Larceny. I mean, we're going to touch on other things, but I wanted us to bring this to the fore, especially since there was an incident yesterday in Hope, St. Andrews, where allegedly a farmer would have shot someone who invaded their property. Most of the details of the story have not yet been released. So that's why I'm saying allegedly. And also because we don't really know all of the details surrounding it. But I want to open the conversation surrounding Predia Larceny, because not only is it a big issue here in Grenada, but I think in most Caribbean islands, Predia Larceny is a plague that is affecting farmers. Only recently in Trinidad, I believe, a farmer disappeared. Some people went to rob his land or whatever, and they can't find his body, you know. It's a plague, and it's a plague not only because of the people stealing your items, but there are some people who are very malicious in their actions and also destroy your crop after stealing your item. So it means that we thieving your thing so you can sell it, but we also mashing it up so you can't sell over us. You know, we want to be the only ones in the market selling this thing.
We must control the market.
Yes, that we have stolen from you. And it's a very, very sad thing. And I mean, it's sad that we have gotten to the place where there is no violence included in that. But really and truly, Mr. Bola, it is something that we may see increase, because I think farmers are at a point where they're frustrated, you know, where they feel like this is their only option to protect their livelihood, you know. And I think as a people, we're not doing enough. And I'm not saying government, because it's not wholly and solely a government issue, but I think it's a national issue.
It is definitely a national issue.
It's a national issue. It is all of us coming together and saying that enough is enough. That a man's livelihood, that a man's farm that he has worked so tediously on, to provide for his family, but also to provide for us as a people, is being attacked in such a way. And I don't think that as a people we are doing enough to combat it. And I know you're a farmer as well. I know you're a farmer as well. So you can understand the point of view that they are coming from. How do we, because you know we are a solution-based talk show. We talk about issues, yes, but we also like to hear resolutions. We like to hear points of concern, but with resolutions as well. How do we as a people combat this? How do we move forward to ensure that farmers want to plant? Because it's real hard, Mr. Bola, for me to go and work all these weeks in my land to produce something, and then somebody just come and thief my thing and mash up the rest of my crops. It is disheartening.
Well, and maybe that's why you never did it.
And especially in an environment where young people don't want to farm. And especially in an environment where farming is seen as an alternative career, you know? So you can't become a doctor, or you can't become a lawyer, or you can't become, and I'm not saying that this is in all of the cases, but you know, in some cases you can't do this or you can't do that, so they send you to work land, you know?
Last option. And especially in an environment where our people, and I'm going to say it, do not support farming. As much as we talk about it, as much as we go on the radio and say more has to be done for agriculture, the majority of the people calling will not pick up a fork or a spade and fork the land. The majority of the people will go into the supermarket and spend $300 and then go by the side of the road and tell a farmer that $5 a pound is too much for them tomatoes. You know, so it's really not a nice environment for farmers already as it is. Well, and we as a people are contributing to that. So how do we now move into an era where we become more supportive of farmers, where we become the help that they need? How do we do that? Well, Ms. Duncan, if you are asking me the question, I honestly don't have a foolproof answer for you. How we'll do it? I have had the good fortune and still has the fortune of being an ardent farmer. I just love farming. And I've been doing it for ages. Still does. Still go to my garden every morning and on afternoons when I can find the time. And on weekends, if it's available to me, I spend the entire weekend in the garden. I love the peace. I love the calm. I love, you know, the scenery. I love to plant things and see them grow. You know, when it's hot and I can't walk, lie under one of the trees and just relax or sit on the banks of the river underneath a tree because I've got a river that flows through the land that I farm on. So I can speak to you from that standpoint. I've also had the good fortune of being at a level in the government, at the level of policy creation and policy making, because I have served for a couple of years as the minister with responsibility for agriculture. But thirdly, I've also had my own run-ins with the issue of pre-Alasni, and I've, lost many of my crop that I've produced, and actually on more than one occasion apprehended people who transgress or infiltrated, as you say, into the land and so. So I think I am at a position where I can offer some advice, but I don't think that I am the repository of all the knowledge and that I know it all, or I'm best placed to be the one that everyone should come to for advice and on how to fix everything. Because the issue of pre-Alasni is an age-old issue that has plagued not just this country, but the entire region. As a matter of fact, some years ago, the FAO, the Food and Agricultural Organization, did a survey and a study on the impacts of pre-Alasni. And they found out that between 20 to 25% of all goods provided by farmers throughout the region is being lost to pre-Alasni. Right? There are a lot of manufactured items that by the time you get to the retailer, the profitability or the markup that they can make on those items is 15 or 16%. Now, as a farmer, when you lose 20%, 20 to 25%, you're already talking about your profit margin. Right? If we compare them. Plus that, you have spoilage. You have goods that you may produce that are not marketable. Or you may have the best quality goods and the market is not available or doesn't, is well saturated, so you can't plant it. So there's another 20% or so that you lose through what we call wastage. That you can't sell. Not because your quality oftentimes is not good, but because there's just no market. Or the distance the market may be from where you're farming. By the time you harvest and you get it to the market, you have significant amount of spoilage from squeezing, from scratches and bruise and what have you. So which goes as bad product. So you lose another 20%. So combine that to pre-Alasni, 40% of your produce is gone. Then you have price cutting. You have so many things that can affect a farmer. You have pest and disease, invasive species that you never knew about. And just when that crop of tomatoes, which you labored on so much, you've prepared the land, you sow the seedlings, or you purchase from a nursery, you plant, you manicure them, you take care of them, you spray, you fertilize, you stake, you put strings, you tie, it's now bearing. Fruiting lovely, and from nowhere at all, a disease just affected, and all your fruits start having water plugs. All the leaves of your tomatoes pick up some kind of strange fungus or something, gets brown. Your whole field, your entire field, just died. You didn't collect $1. So farming in and of itself is a tough job. You need men of steel, men to be consistently in that. And don't wonder why some young people try it and instantly they give it up. Because it's a constant beat. Doing vegetable farming in particular is similar to mothering a baby. The child cries, you have to run in. You put her to sleep or him to sleep, and there's a noise, you run to see if the baby follow the crib. You want to nurse them. You want to give them things. They need a little walk because they're tired of lying down. So it's like caring for a baby. You constantly have to be watchful. You have to be there. Yes, you water and you fertilize and you spray, but there are some things that your eyes have to always be searching for. So, for example, you plant melons. I'm just giving a few examples. We know we're talking about pre-Alasni, but I just want people to have an appreciation of how difficult it could be to farm. So you plant watermelons and you fertilize and you spray and what have you. But ever so often you must bend down and take the vine in your hand, and at the very tip of the vine, observe them, examine them, make sure there are no mites. Because sometimes you're spraying openly, you don't use a mist blower, but that very tip, that is where the attack from invasive species come first.
Right.
But your melon looks green and nice, and it starts fruiting, and then all of a sudden it goes down because you didn't have a watchful enough eyes to check those little buds there and see that they were being affected, and know that you had to spray them in particular and not just the broad leaves that you see. So it's intensive. It's intensive. I mean, if you're doing 3 crops and so you have a little more leeway, but you also have to pay a lot of attention. When to fertilize, when to clean your drains, make sure that you debush, how to prune, at what time you prune, what is the best. All of those things come in handy. You get assistance from the ministry through the extension division, but it is a constant beat, day by day by day by day by day, and there is no guarantee that there is money at the end of it. No. To zero in on pre-elastic, it is one of the worst things over the decades that has been affecting farmers. I mean, someone breaks into your house and they steal some grocery, they steal your pot of food that you prepared, whatever, it hurts you.
Yeah.
They steal your little money you've been putting away to do something for your children or whatever. It hurts, it's painful. And you swear that if you have caught the person, what you would do. But you know what? You will survive it. You may have something else to cook again. It's a task and a labor to cook again. You may be able to put the money together again over the next couple of weeks or months or what have you. But it's a loss that you have had. But when you are farming, and for every single crop you plant, just when it's about time that you should be harvesting, to see something at the end of the day, someone comes in and take it away. And some of them are wicked, They take everything,
Yeah.
There are some guys, when they go to steal people's pigeon peas, they don't have time to stop tree by tree and pick, They cut the trees and go with them.
And go with the tree, yeah.
So you planted. You never got the chance to get some peas for yourself. They cut your peach trees and go with it. They get to a safe place. They pick out all of those full ones, all the blossoms and young ones, that if they have left the tree, you might have been able to get a pot of peas from. You lose that too. Spoilage, wastage. I mean, can you imagine how painful that could be? Yes?
Yeah.
Everything, they just go with it. It doesn't give you any motivation or encouragement. As a matter of fact, it has been proven that pre-elastic is one of the single most greatest disincentive to farming. Pre-elastic, one of the greatest disincentive. Yes, and so a lot has been said about it. By Grenada standards, a lot has been attempted with some level of success, but a lot more needs to be done.
Right.
I recall during my time as minister, we had established the pre-elastic task force. One of the problems they were working along with the Royal Grenada Police Office, one of the problems they had was transportation.
Right.
They couldn't access transport when they get a call or when they wanted to make a patrol. To some extent, we have been able to deal with it during my time. Just about the time I was moved from the Ministry of Agriculture to another ministry, we had on order a couple of used vans from Japan that was meant to strengthen or augment whatever vehicle pool the pre-elastic task force. Because remember, while they work with the police, they are kind of separate from the police.
Right.
And the police have their own duties. And sometimes they would assist and go on patrol together with them. But many a times the police attention is on other civil unrest and other things that they have to deal with, while the pre-elastic task force deals specific with farmers' complaints and so. And there have been some successes. I can't remember the numbers now, but there were quite a few people that was apprehended and charges was brought against them, and they had to go to court and payments was made and what have you. So there is the pre-elastic Act that speaks to what you must do to be considered as committing the act of pre-elastic. And for those who feel what the hell you're talking about with their last name. For those who thieving in your land, in the most basic term. For those guys who come in and thief your fruits and vegetables, they're thieving your produce from you. It's referred to in the legal terms as pre their last name.
Right.
But it's thief. It's the same thing.
Thief, yes.
Yeah.
It's just nicer words.
A nicer word. Like you have embezzlement and misappropriation of funds and commingling of the client funds. They all amount to the same thing. They thief.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what they do. Now, the legislation speaks to, and you never gave me early notice that you will be speaking pretty last night today. So didn't do my research, didn't work with a copy of the Pretty Larceny Act. It was amended a couple of times for some things to be changed in it. But some basic things that my mind can remember, what I can remember. And that is where we need to do a lot more work in terms of making the issue of capturing those perpetrators. Because while you have a lot of people who go out there and plunder the farmers' produce, you have vendors who support them, aid and abet them, because from the farmer's farm, they go straight to those vendors' homes or their stalls or what have you. And the vendors continue to support that because they get special prices from these guys, because they know what they do to get it. They didn't labor. So an item like, let's say, beets, which normally, or carrots, which a farmer would normally sell at farm gate price for $5 per pound. When a hustler, a person go and steal that, they may sell it to them for $3 or $3.50, but at a reduced price from what the farmer sells. So there are some vendors who aid and abet those kind of things. But the act has called for a transfer of a receipt. Once you trade in items, agricultural items, I think, more than 10 pounds or 12 pounds or something like that. Under that, I don't think they make it mandatory, but people can ask for the receipt. But I think once it's 10 pounds or more, there should be an exchange of receipt. So if you are a vendor, Ms. Duncan, and you pick up a bucket or a crate of cucumbers from me, we should wait, know how many pounds, and a receipt should exchange hands. To say that I received from you $50 for 20 or 30 pounds of cucumbers, date and everything else with a signature. To help deal with the issue too, they had moved into doing farmer's ID.
Right.
Which would help to capture information on a farmer, how much blocks of land he has, where they are located, if it's more than one, and what are the main crops you do. Are you a vegetable farmer? Are you a tree crop farmer? Are you a traditional crop farmer of cocoa, nutmegs? Because all of those things they steal as well. I mean, maybe melons and now soursop as a prime crop gets a lot more licking, but it doesn't mean that the guys who do nutmegs and people don't lose their cocoa and their bananas and plantains and almost everything you can produce, your mangoes and sapodillas and what have you, they will steal them. So the issuance of farmers' ID is to help deal and curb. That's one of the reasons. Right. So I recall we had arrangements with marketing board and some of the hotels and large supermarkets that purchase and resell agricultural produce to demand from anyone selling to you that they come with a farmer's ID.
Right.
That they show you the farmer's ID.
But what about the vendors, and because we know that there are vendors who purchase from farmers to sell, whether it's in the vendors market or you see individuals with their carts or trolleys or whatever you want to call it, set up shop somewhere along the streets of St. George, or somebody pass in a van in your community selling produce to you. I mean, and I think these are some of the more problematic norms, because you have a farmer's ID, you sell to the Marketing and National Importing Board, but I don't think that the individuals, and this is just my personal thought, that steal from farmers on that level going to MNIB. I feel like these are individuals that would come to your door with a couple bags of this or a couple bags of that.
Well, most of the time, that's how it happens.
So how do we as
we should demand it too, because we ask the housewives, and so you're home and you're going to purchase.
Right.
Please demand that person show you a farmer's ID.
Right, but so okay, yes, you can show a farmer's ID considering you are a farmer.
Right.
But what if you are a vendor? So how do I identify as a housewife? How do I'm at home on Saturday, somebody passed with some nice tomatoes and cabbage and so on, and I want it. I really don't want to go in town to buy it. How do I identify from this individual that you are a vendor, an honest vendor who has purchased from a farmer in an honest manner, and you're reselling to me? That is difficult.
It's difficult, but also because I was getting to the point of farmers, of vendors, because vendors are also supposed to be registered.
Right.
You are supposed to be a registered vendor. And that is why from time to time the police can just check you. They can just show up at your place of selling or just meet you on the road and you and ask you for your particulars. You must show up your ID.
Right.
Or they may say, well, here you have, as you say, lovely tomatoes. Whom did you purchase from? Can I see a receipt?
Right.
Did you provide a receipt? Or did the farmer give you a receipt saying I received at $100 or $500 from M. Duncan? For the purchase of 20 pounds or 30 pounds of this or what have you. So all of that, because the police can do the background check. So I'm just laying out to you all of the mechanisms that were put in place, because they need to know and need to be able to follow the trail, right?
So is it that maybe as a nation, that as consumers, we need to normalize providing particulars for business transactions, in terms of as vendors being registered? I know they have a number or so on, providing receipt. Under your whether your receipt book has an ID number or so on, that you can provide me with as someone purchasing your goods, because I think it's a problem. Just recently, the police had to put out a notice that we have to be careful as consumers purchasing bananas because there were needles in them.
Right.
And I think these are all mechanisms that farmers are using to curb pretty larceny.
Which is not correct, eh?
But we as the consumers are the ones that are, at the end of the day, on the receiving end of this kind of behavior, because you put a needle in a banana, it hurts in the teeth because the banana go and sell it, the person is selling it to someone else, and there is no way of tracking that this is what was stolen from you in particular.
And that is why those systems were put in place. What we don't have is enforcement and proper implementation.
Right.
So all vendors, once you're going to be trading in agricultural produce, should be registered.
Right.
Have an ID, your name, contacts, and everything about you, should be in a system. That is why during my time as minister, we provided computers to every police station and every district office, where there can be an exchange of information. Because we identified, along with the police and the Pre-Larceny Task Force, there can be what is called hotspots at various times.
Right.
So there can be a particular area in a village, in a community, in a parish, where for a particular month or two, you may have a cluster of farmers harvesting a particular crop. Melon is a very popular one. Tomatoes, sweet potatoes. So, for example, there are quite a number of young guys from Pearls, for example, and I can talk about what I know. It happens in Montreal. It happens in different parts of the island that farm along that old airstrip in Pearls. And they oftentimes have very similar produce. So at any one time, there can be 10 of those guys who are harvesting melons or pumpkins or sweet potatoes or what have you, okra. So because of the information exchange, the extension officer may be able to put into the database at his office, a district office, give a description, Pearls, close to the airstrip, 15 farmers, approximately 3 acres of melon is in the process of harvesting or will be harvested within the next week. Because the extension officer is the one that interfaces with the farmer on a regular basis. Now the police can access that because they are linked. The system, the computer system, is linked to that of the area office, and map that area out now as a hotspot. So can do what they call stakeout. Be in hiding position late in the night because you expect now, because these items are ready. It could be in Simone. It could be some part of St. David's, wherever they are. Because the information is flowing around, the police and the pre-larceny task force has a better idea now where they can be. But sometimes the implementation and the rollout is what is very slow. There's the issue now, one of the latest thing of cameras. There's a gentleman I know down by the Trade Center that
CCTV
has
cameras
that you can set up there. Some farmers who have, but then it comes at a really kind of hefty cost, so there are a lot of small farmers that may not be able to afford that. There's also the normal, just basic, what they call random check-in. Right? Where the pre-larceny officers can just walk into the market square, do some sidewalk check-in. Hey, here you have pineapples. Whom did you buy that from? Do some calls. Do the verification. Farmer X have never sold any pineapple. Right. So they know now that vendor is not speaking the truth. He's not speaking the truth. And you can bring the pressure to be borne on them. So, because here's what. The guys who actually steal from the farmers, they do it because they have an access to selling it, These guys don't just go in and steal and hope to walk around house to house to sell a pound of potato here or a pound of tomato there or 2 grains of plantain there. When they come into your land and they cut 7, 8, 10 bunches of plantain, it's because they have an outlet where they drop that. Right? So if everybody plays the role and demand more, if the vendors know that, listen, and in fact, I think the legislation calls for doubling the penalty of a vendor who knowingly purchase items from someone that they know committed the act of pre-larceny. The act speaks to that. But have we ever seen a vendor got penalized? Yeah. I don't know of anyone. They continue to ply the trade. In addition to that, people in general must have a conscience. Yeah. We must, because sometimes we leave everything up to the police. The police don't know and can't see everything. There are those of us who see and know of people who are actively stealing from farmers. And we turn a blind eye. Well, ain't my business now, Papa. I don't want to get mixed up in these people and them thing. Yeah. Me, I have time to call no police and then they go and say, Missy. Me, I ain't telling Mr. Joe one thing, because as I tell him, you go to the man and tell him the neighbor next door the land or Miss Jeanette say. Yeah. We have all those things. But we need to be each other's keeper and we need to deal with that. Now, as it relates to government does have a role. Because government cannot be the employer of everybody. Right. But they have to set the conditions. They must make it conducive so that those who are not working directly with government can thrive. Yeah. And so the government needs to spend a little more to ensure that the task force, the pre-larceny task force, is well manned, has sufficient people, have the necessary equipment and the facilities to help them to go out there to work with the farmers.
Right. And I want us to pause there because I want to open the lines for individuals to call and contribute to the conversation. Remember, you can call at 440-7377 if you're calling locally. Now, if you're in the diaspora and you want to contribute to the conversation, the number to call is 347-329-3101. And you can also message us on WhatsApp at 440-7377, but also call us as well on WhatsApp, and continue to, as you've been doing, follow on social media and send your comments there. Now, Mr. Bola, I want us to pause there for a moment because you brought up a very good point and something's been turning in my head for a while. Now, while I understand that government, yes, has to make more resources available to a task force or to the farmers, or as some people say, we need to invest more in farming. I think when we speak investment, people always think it has to be financial. But I think there needs to be more supplementary support given to farmers in terms of fixing the system as it is now before we invest financially in it. So every year for budget, you hear the biggest allocation from the budget goes to farming, goes to agriculture. Well, sometimes.
True. That's not
But
true.
they get a large amount.
They get a large
and
amount, but
it
it's never the
increases
biggest.
every year.
Yeah, but education normally the most. Health does come in front of agriculture.
No.
Not now, a long time now. Also tourism. So, security.
But they get a big
yes, you would hear 29 million, you would hear what, and a lot of it sometimes is for road construction, the farm roads and whatever.
Right. However, I feel, and this is my opinion, I feel like there needs to be more, I don't want to say dialogue because they've been doing a lot of dialogue with the farmers, but in terms of putting these structures in place. So for example, vendors, ensuring that enforcement, as you said, enforcement and implementation.
That is what is killing us.
It ensuring that vendors have their vendors ID. All vendors, whether you're selling from a table or you're selling from a trolley or you're selling in the market, whatever it is, whatever your means, whether you're going around by means of a van through the neighborhood, where you set up a little shop within your constituency, I feel like every vendor must have their vendor's ID. It must be something that becomes mandatory. I think we don't treat agriculture like a business enough. So we have all kind of people selling all kind of things, and once it look nice, the buying public will purchase it without question. So I feel like more implementation. So a lot of fixing needs to be done to these already existing things. It needs to be, whether it's strict reinforcement or enforcement or whatever you want to call it, because as a population, we ain't like when the police get in business. We become defensive, we feel they ain't have no place and they ain't have no rights. But as soon as something go wrong, we call on them for support and defense. So I feel like we need to allow them to do their jobs. Mind you, the police need to do their jobs with discretion as well, and also ensure that their customer service is up to par, because really and truly enforcing the law is not just about safety but about customer service, how you approach an individual, how you resolve a conflict that you see getting heated, how you allow something to simmer down as opposed to adding or fueling it so it becomes a contentious situation. All of these things are things that really need to be discussed among the police force. Mind you, a lot of great policemen who know how to do that, but there are also a lot that need that kind of training, right? So we're not saying that, oh, well, all of them is like that, or that the general public should just adhere or accept certain kinds of behaviors from them, but we must also allow them to do their jobs as well, and call for better training also. So
here's another disincentive as it relates to farming and pre-deal licensing. So the length of time it takes sometimes for a matter before the court. So someone is apprehended, I think we had moved to the stage where the legislation now accepts photographs as evidence, because a lot of the things that farmers do are perishable items. So a guy takes 50 breadfruit from your land and the police apprehend him. They have the breadfruit as exhibit. But the case doesn't call until a month down the road. What do you do with those breadfruits? They don't remain. They would have rot by then. So where is your exhibit? Right. So I think now the court accepts pictures, photos as part of the exhibit for evidence. But we have called for some time during my time in the ministry for what we refer to as a special court for farming. Like how you have family court.
But that sounds
a
good.
Special court. Mm-hmm. And a special court for us did not mean a building. Right? Because the pre-deal licensing cases get tied up and entwined with all other things, all other civil matters and so. And sometimes it takes a much longer time than needed. And farmers are busy people. Farmers are not there to waste time. So you have an item in the court to be heard for some pretty alasni matter. And you're gone in today, Tuesday, and after sitting in the court for 2 or 3 hours, your matter calls and they said for whatever reason a lawyer didn't show up, or this or the prosecutor did not prepare for the case. So it's put off until 3 weeks down the road. And 3 weeks down the road, you go back and it's put off for another reason. Now, that is a farmer losing an entire day from his land going to the courthouse. So there are many times pretty alasni matters are dismissed and thrown out because either the farmer don't show up, or, people just don't take that issue of pretty alasni as seriously as they take maybe housebreaking, or they take the issue of rape, or which you can't compare. But I mean, all issues must be taken on seriously because the thing. So we have been calling for a special court for pretty alasni, and what that meant to us is the magistrate in the different districts. So you have the eastern and the western and the northern, and you have several districts. So for example, starting from St. David's, if Mondays are dedicated in St. David's for all matters of pretty alasni in that jurisdiction, Mondays is when you hear it. You don't hear no other case, right? So it's the same magistrate, the same courthouse, but Mondays are set aside every week for pretty alasni matters until you run them out and probably you don't have more that you have to deal with. Tuesdays may be set aside for pretty alasni matters in Grenville. In the courthouse there. Wednesdays may be the day for St. Patrick's, so Thursdays may be St. John's, that's the Guava area. Friday may be St. George's. So that farmers know there is a 90% chance at least that when I go to the court in St. David's on Monday, there's a 90% chance that my case may come up, may be heard, and whatever judgment that the magistrate has to set out, they may set it out. So it's not about going and you don't show. And there's a chance that it may be put off by the sheer numbers that the magistrate may have to deal with, or by the length of time it may take to deal with one issue as compared to another. But on a Monday in St. David's, that is what is being dealt with. So because we believe that that's one of the things that will encourage farmers to want to let the system work for them. Because there are some farmers who don't get fed up and don't bother with calling the police. Because there's always one excuse or the other. And maybe sometimes there are good rationales for the police saying that we don't have the time, or we don't have a transport, or we can't come to your place now. Maybe. But some farmers just decide, I can't be bothered with that. I've called them 4 times already, I've called them 5 times already, or we have apprehended a culprit 3 times, and every time it takes me 6 months, it takes me 8 months, it takes me going to the court 8 times before there was some kind of judgment. And what did the guy get? The magistrate charged him $200 and he walked. And he come back to my same land and steal something again, and make the $200 and go and pay the court. There was one time they were sentencing some people to labor on the farm that they stole from. Give 2 weeks a labor to compensate the farmer for the thing. And then you have farmer say, boy, that man who steal from me already a relative, I don't want him back on my land. I don't want him come because he only coming to see what more I have, to come back. Yes, he may do some work, but they rather not bring him on the land. So different things have been tried. So it is not saying that the system has just dumped farmers and don't bother with pretty alasni. That is not true to say. But it has not reached the level where farmers are fully confident in the system, or believe that it is working in their favor. There was a time in one of the consultations when the farmers said they think the best thing is to equip them with licensed guns. That is not something that the police wants to go for, and that is not something we want to advocate, because sometimes men get like a trigger happy. Yes, and because a man steals from you, it may not, is not all the reason to take his life away. And you may not intentionally go for that, but we can't control where a bullet goes. Except you're a real sharpshooter, like me. I mean, when I aim for bullseye, it's bullseye. You know what I mean? But So there are a lot of things that were suggested, that was put on the table. I think the dialogue must continue, but there must be some greater intent. Even though the steps are many, but consistently farmers must recognize and must appreciate that more is being done to deal with the issue of pre-elastic, because it's a serious issue. It happens much more than we see and we understand, because it doesn't happen in the open, it doesn't happen out in the community. It takes place in dark spots in the farmers' lot, most times at nights, sometimes in the day too, but most times at night when the farmer is trying to rest after a hard day's work, hoping to get up tomorrow, he's got to work again or to harvest something. By the time he goes in the morning, his thing is gone. So we need to incrementally, farmers must feel, well, yes, this year, in terms of the amount of pre-elastic cases that has gone through the court system, is much more than what happened last year, or more people have gotten satisfaction, or the pre-elastic task force was more upbeat and vigilant. Even when I didn't call them, they called me and tell me they were making a pass through on my farm. Another thing that sometimes intentionally fellas don't go to steal from a farmer, but is this issue of hunting. Guys go out at nights to hunt wildlife and so, but they get onto a man's farm, going through it, shining their flashlight and so, they see lovely plantings. Boy, we ain't hold nothing, but look, we got something here. They see pineapples, and they load themselves up and go. Right? I'm not saying that to say that they're correct, because once you take it without the permission of the farmer, you've stolen it, right? But there are a lot of avenues where things happen that the unsuspecting mind will not think about, will not see it, and doesn't consider it. Yes? But farmers are really under tremendous pressure as it relates to pre-elastic.
Someone on the live is saying, but Ms. Duncan, living in a village, I think we know some of the guys that steal and have no lands. So the people that buy their stolen goods are worse than them. And they are the ones that should be charged or locked up. Someone is saying, and there is an old adage or an old saying that goes, the upholder is worse than the thief. Mr. Bola, I think it is important for us to just make note or make mention, because oftentimes when, and we've said this here before, individuals are saying, oh, well, more needs to be done in farming, but nobody can identify what, or agriculture in general, but nobody can identify what the more in agriculture needs to be. And some persons have ideas of what they feel agriculture should be like, and they feel like that is something that should just be implemented because they have an idea and they feel it's a solid idea, that government must just adapt this because it makes sense, but not taking into consideration that you're the person presenting the idea. You're most definitely not the person that's going to be expected to follow through on it. Therefore, you're not a farmer. And we don't take into consideration what the farmers go through, if they even want to go ahead with your suggestion, because government doesn't do farming. Government, the 15 representatives, because we like to believe that government is the 15 representatives, they don't go into the land and farm. They depend on the farmers to follow through with whatever promises that they have made, or whatever they have chosen to do, or chosen to produce, or chosen to supply the National Market and Importing Board with that. I think as a people we must keep in mind that there is more behind agriculture than just government pumping monies into it. That we have to take into consideration that agriculture means farmers, and farmers need our support. And when we choose to, and I'm not saying, I mean, it's everybody's personal choice where they choose to shop, but when we choose to dictate how farmers must sell their produce, not taking into consideration the amount of labor that they have put in, the amount of problems that they go through just to get this produce to you or to your table or to the vendors so that you can purchase. We do not take that into consideration. We don't take into consideration the fact that there is pre-larceny, or the fact that there is so much pests and diseases that affect the crop, that we don't take into consideration the amount of water that these individuals have to use. We feel it's just put something in the ground, it sprout, we dig it up and we sell it. Fertilizer has to be purchased. Tools have to be purchased. Time has to be put into doing what we are doing. We have to make sure that we maintain our crop to a certain standard. All of these things are things that farmers have to do before they can even get the produce to the table. And yes, we may love to have produce at a cheaper scale, but I feel like if we don't, as a people, decide that we are going to support agriculture here first, then how do we expect to sit down and say that not enough is being done in agriculture?
Well, I agree with you to a certain extent, but not totally. There are times when there are some price gouging. There are times when farmers can afford to sell a produce cheaper than they're doing it. Because farmers must also remember, stay into the business of farming. It looks like you can make a little more if you go into the market on a Saturday and what, because you're selling at a retail price as opposed to selling in bulk at a farm gate price and allowing the retailer to make. There are some retailers too that want to make too much at any one time.
Right.
So they want to take the produce from the farmer at a certain price and make 100% or 150% at times. So a farmer feels, well, look, but I have a lot of tomatoes and the market look like it will get saturated pretty soon. So I'm going to sell you my tomatoes at $1.50 a pound. The vendor will not turn around and sell it $2.50.
Right.
Or even $2. They feel they can still get $4 and they're pushing $4, which makes it take a longer time to sell.
Right.
And so the farmer who was expecting you in 2 days to come back and take another 2 crates from him, because he gave you at a better price, doesn't get you because you take a longer time. While yes, you sell for more, but you take a longer time to sell it. So sometimes as business people, we don't always implement the best business practices to do that. And so farmers get hurt along the way. And you said something that a lot of people say, more for farming, yes, and not identifying what they more. I did identify 1 or 2 things that I believe in pretty elastically that needs to be addressed. So don't categorize me as those of us who ask for more. We can't say what the more we want. I mean, I believe honestly that if you have the specified court, like we put it, and again, I want to explain, it doesn't mean a special courthouse with a special magistrate. They say, oh, well, the pretty elastic could in Sotes or either way. No, it's the same courthouse. It's the same magistrate that will deal with the thing. But you have a specified day in every week for a different district. Like we said, Monday, St. David's, only thing we hear in is pretty elastic matters. So the farmers have a day in St. David's for themselves to deal with all the matters. You get caught the morning, before the end of the day, you might get trial. Because how the system operates. So each step of the way, each arm of the system must work in conjunction with the other to make the thing run through smoothly. You know how good it will be for a farmer if he walks into his garden first thing in the morning and he apprehend a culprit, or he got the police to apprehend a culprit, and by 4 o'clock in the evening,
he gets some justice.
Some justice. That matter dealt with. Compensation for the farmer. Bam, bam, bam. 6 months in prison or 500, and give them the maximum. Sometimes people just would not learn until they get the maximum, And I mean, even me, sometimes I say, boy, a guy and his family may be down and out, I think Mr. Bola, boy, I see Mr. Bola green banana down there. Let me go and steal a 2-hand, which is not what he should do. The first thing is probably come to Mr. Bola and explain himself and ask kindly if he would give you some. And I will if you ask me, right? And I'm not saying that we should tolerate any level of pretty elasticity. Not at any level. But if I catch a guy with 2 hands of banana leaving my property, and I apprehend him and he say, sir, I'm sorry, I should have asked you, that should be the first thing to do. But I really just don't have anything for my family and I think my conscience would allow me to let him go and tell him, don't do it another time. He should ask. He shouldn't just walk in.
Yeah.
And I think most farmers, I can't speak for everybody, but most farmers will appreciate and still want to forgive a guy because you meet him and he has 4 tomatoes in his hand. He pick it from your tree and he tell you, sorry boss, I didn't have right to do it, but we have a little piece of saltfish with some green fig there. The tomatoes going to just help stretch it for the wife and the family, you know?
And so, I think we are nice enough as a people to
but
say
I am still not saying that is the correct thing.
No, I mean, if I go to you and say, well, you know, Mr. Bolema community is a farmer, and I will go to him and, you know, see what he say. I think if we approach it in the proper way, I don't see, unless that person is a total animal, I don't see him saying, watch, I know tomato to gain, you know? I don't see that happening. I think we are genuinely, as a people, very nice, very caring, very understanding, if approached in the proper manner. Because, you know, some people, they're wrong and they're right, and you can't tell them they're wrong because they're right, you know, and some people are very arrogant in their way. They feel, okay, well, you have a lot, so just give me, because I deserve.
But how did you get a lot? You labored, you did whatever you did, and this now must be your reward for your labor. So people can't just look at what you have. How did you get to what you have? As they sometimes say, you see my glory, you don't know my story. How did I get there? And why can't you do likewise to get there? You know?
There.
So,
or instead of stealing the farmer's tomato, say, boss, you know, show me how to plant 2 trees, or give me 2 seedlings, you know, let me plant it, and so that I am able to not having to come to you all of the time and say, give me 2 tomatoes, but at least I know I could get 2 tomatoes.
But you know something I didn't touch on as yet, and I'm going to touch on it now quickly, because we've been speaking about perpetrators, about, you know, those who come in, those who think. 50% of the act of larceny that is committed against farmers are committed by farmers. Amazing. I was shocked.
That is
50% of the act of larceny is committed by farmers. I'll give you an example. Farmers steal from farmers more than perpetrators come from outside and steal. Farmer A plants 3,000 stools of tomato in his land. And we're just using the vegetables as an example. Farmer B, who farms alongside, on the next side, whether it's the next side of the river, the next side of the drain, the next side of the fence. What you planting 3,000 stools of tomatoes?
I want to take it.
No, you don't just take it like that. But he plants 100 stools, right? And he cares for his 100 stools. But when market time comes around, because they would harvest around the same time, the man with 100 stools of tomatoes sells more tomatoes than the man with 3,000 stools.
Yep. And you wonder why. Well, we know why.
We know why.
Why.
Yes, he has tomatoes, so he can always tell the police. Because, and I just draw that reference to tell you, even for the police, it is not always very easy.
Yeah.
Because the man can prove to you that he has tomatoes. But what will work for us is information gathering. So the extension people, like I say, can have on the database, Farmer B has 100 stools of tomatoes.
Yeah.
His land is located where and where and where. Farmer A has 3,000 stools of tomatoes. And his land is located adjacent to Farmer B. They give you the description, they give you the area, the general address. If we demand that things be done properly, receipts must exchange hands when purchase or sale is made.
Yeah.
It becomes easier for the lawmen to trace.
Yes.
Well, how comes Farmer B have 100 stools of tomatoes? But he sold vendor C 100 pounds Saturday.
Yeah.
He sell vendor E another 100 pounds on Sunday.
Right.
Monday was a holiday. Vendor F bought 300 pounds from him to go to the market on Tuesday. So that's 500 pounds within a 3-day period. Huh?
Yeah.
I mean, his tomato probably being all under the ground.
Oh, God.
So you start to investigate, and you will find that Farmer B is harvesting heavily from farmer A.
Yeah. You know, we've been so engaged in conversations and we have not really been taking calls. And I want to apologize to the callers, but we do have a caller on the line. And I think time is really running out on us. So I do want to take this call. It is. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, caller. How are you? Hello?
Caller is low, boy.
Yeah. Hello, caller? No, the call dropped. Not sure what's going on there. The call has dropped. Hello? So we'll wait for the caller to call back. But we are out of time. Maybe we'll just take that one call. And we apologize to the caller.
Well, you have not been focusing on the phone because you want to grill me so much.
No, because I want to get the conversation started.
Yeah,
and I
hope
think it's
that I would
important.
say something wrong so you can pounce on me.
Oh, gosh, no. And I do want to let farmers know, because, of course, we are all about providing information as well, that the Marketing and National Importing Board now has this production contract program going. You know, and
they ain't enough to us up for them to make no contract with
not
anybody.
just soursop. I think there are a few other produce that they want to encourage farmers to get a part of or become a part of. But you can go to their Facebook page for those who do have the Facebook page. For those who don't, inquire on how you can get the application or at least get some more information on what this means. So let's try and get this caller in, Mr. Bola, and then we can close after that. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Hi, good morning, how are you?
I am good. I like this conversation for more reasons than one. And before I go further, Mr. Bola has a whole wealth of farming experience, so I would like to see him more active as it relates to the economics of farming and agriculture in Grenada. A very salient point that was made a while ago, doing the market research to know what is needed, what quantity is needed. I don't know if you realize that. A couple of weeks ago, there were so many tomatoes on the market.
True.
We call it a glut. But now you can't find any, or very little. And that is something that I think that was the mandate of the Marketing and National Importing Board. But for some reason, I think that they must have lost that focus along the way. There needs to be a planned approach to this thing so that at any given time, farmers should be aware as to what quantity of a particular produce the market takes up.
Right.
And plan to suit that. What it does is that it gives the farmers, or it safeguards the farmers from having to drop their prices to ridiculously low standards at times. There are times you're getting tomatoes $1 a pound.
Right.
That should never happen.
And sometimes $8 a pound.
You understand what I'm saying? If we know what the market absorbs, all right, and that should be done, in my opinion, in a collaborative effort from Marketing Board, MNIB, and the Ministry of Agriculture through the Extension Division. Know the market, know the populace, know due to statistics and data, know what the market consumes at a time, and farmers plant accordingly so that you can maintain the stock on the market and maintain your price. A farmer shouldn't have to, because whether you sell it at $1 a pound or $8 a pound, the input remains the same.
Yes.
You know, so this is what I would like to see happening, a more business-like approach. I think we should have gone past the days where people who, you know, as Mr. Bola would tell you, he knows where I'm talking from. My grandmother used to say to me, I'd say it how she would say it, stay there and don't study your schoolwork. On Dunfermline Estate, you will get to work.
Up by me, they used to say River and Twine.
River and Twine.
Because that one closer.
we have gone past that stage. Agriculture is a business, and I don't think we are approaching it as a business enough.
Well, some people, because there are a few, we can pick out and pick a few farmers that are really business. Like BJ, for example, is one. You know, he comes to mind instantly. But there are a couple others that do it as a business and understand what they're doing. Yeah. We used to have another guy that you should know too, Godwin Williams. We used to call him Noxie. He was a very big business. You know. So there are one or two.
I would like to see some initiatives go in that direction. And again, it boils back again to the education of it. People have to understand. People don't understand the merit of agriculture. You know? We are more important, as far as I'm concerned. Well, I wouldn't say more important, but we are equally as important as the queen.
Yep.
Because we have to feed her.
She can't get food if we don't plant food.
Yeah. We have to understand that people have to stop planting. Oh, boy, tomatoes have money. So you want to plant 50 trees of tomatoes. Where is the market for it?
Yeah.
You know?
And the time. You're so
Mr.
correct.
Bola and Ms. Duncan,
thank you.
I just came out and get my first shot.
Well, good. I'm glad you did take it on your arm and not in your heart, eh?
I hope it affect my heart.
You want it to grow or to pump more blood? Well, we congratulate you. We are happy to hear that. We are happy to hear that.
So keep up your great work.
Thank you. We're running out of time, but thank you for your comments. Thank you for that. And we will continue the discussion on various issues as the weeks go by.
Okay, have a blessed one.
You have a good one yourself. To my dear people, we are really, really out of time. In fact, we have run over by almost 2 minutes already.
Tomorrow is
hopefully post-cabinet.
Hopefully post-cabinet. But Thursday, Mr. Bola, I want us to continue the conversation. I know we focused a lot on vaccination.
And we can't stop.
And we can't stop focusing. But of course, there are still other issues that need our attention.
Life continues.
There's still a lot of education to be meted out, a lot of discussion to be had as it relates to a lot of the issues that are happening in the country and continue to happen. And I think a lot of open, honest, adult conversation needs to be had. And maybe we need to start those conversations. You know, it has to start somewhere. So hopefully Thursday we can continue along the lines of agriculture.
God be with you all until Thursday. We are off. We have to go. Continue to be responsible, careful, follow the protocols.
Absolutely.
Have a good Tuesday.
Guys, we have come to the end of our program for today. And as we say here every single day, in whatever you do and whatever you say, be safe and be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we do not ever want to be talking about you. So please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report. It has been a pleasure, guys.
Hey, are you gonna wear your mask today? You see everywhere you go, there are rules you got to follow, so don't you say COVID-19 will delay. Take the opportunity to save your community. Don't be that guy, put a mask on your face if you're heading outside. It's your life, my life, more lives we'll be taking if we don't try. If you feel any symptoms, call the hotline. Stay inside until you feel fine. 6 feet away every day. Keep COVID-19 far from away. Keep Grenada safe. Be COVID-19 smart.
Prime Minister underscores government's duty to protect the integrity of the Citizenship by Investment program. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Friday, May 21st, 2021, I am Rikisha St. Louis. Prime Minister Dr. the Right Honorable Keith Mitchell has underscored government's responsibility to protect the integrity of Grenada's Citizenship by Investment program. The Prime Minister's comment is in response to allegations that the government is anti-business, allegations made by Warren Newfield in his resignation letter as an ambassador at large for Grenada. Newfield is also the developer of the Kimpton-Kawana Bay project in the south of the island. Speaking during Friday's sitting of the House of Representatives, Dr. Mitchell said it is clear that there was no issue with diplomatic representation, but instead with government policies relating to the country's CBI program. Referencing the Grenada Sustainable Aquaculture Project, popularly known as the Shrimp Farm Project, Dr. Mitchell said government must act decisively to ensure that funds earmarked for development of projects under the CBI program are not misappropriated. He further stated that all necessary steps must be taken to ensure that the shrimp farm debacle is not repeated. The Prime Minister quoted from Section 7 of the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Regulations, which specifically states that, and I quote, every developer shall use all qualifying investment amounts received for an approved project for the sole purpose of the development of the particular approved project, unquote. Dr. Mitchell affirmed that government has a fundamental responsibility to ensure that this is done. Like the initial government statement issued in response to the allegations of being anti-business, the Prime Minister indicated that the number of ongoing private sector projects, particularly in this time of global crisis, tells an entirely different story. Dr. Mitchell said the allegations are unfounded since none of the other major private sector project developers have indicated any such perception of the government.
The rise in the CBI Section 11 application, which is the investor component, get to investment finances, is much higher today than in recent times. In fact, higher than what it was before COVID-19. So that's significant. It is therefore unfortunate that anyone would brand this government as anti-business, anti-investor, because they are not allowed to do as they wish.
Newfield's resignation letter cites the recent repurchase of Grenlec as an example of what he purports to be government's anti-business stance.
If we could be described as anti-business, anti-investor, because we have decided that Grenlec and its natural service to this country must be influenced in some extent, not even necessarily owned, but influenced by the government and people of this country, I am proud to be anti-business, and I'm sure the members of the government generally would all be extremely proud.
The Prime Minister regards the former ambassador's resignation as a preemptive move because he had been warned that he would be stripped of his diplomatic status. In closing, the Prime Minister expressed utmost confidence in Grenada's CBI program, saying the brand is strong and continues to do well, and the number of applications are increasing. Continuing the news, parliamentarians on Friday approved an extension of the Declaration of Emergency Powers to November 20th, 2021. The original declaration of state of emergency was made by the Governor-General in March 2020, and in January this year, both houses of Parliament passed a resolution extending the declaration of emergency to July 14th. The motion was presented by Leader of Government Business, Honorable Gregory Bowen, who said the extension of the state of emergency does not necessarily mean that a curfew will remain in place. Minister Bowen said government must preserve the success of its efforts thus far in managing the spread of COVID-19.
The extension of the state of the emergency, Mr. Speaker, does not mean that a curfew will exist for that period. What we must recognize, Mr. Speaker, without invoking this component, this section of the Constitution, then the Minister for National Security, nor the police, nor the health personnel any authority in order to curtail the freedom of the citizens so as to protect all of us, Mr. Speaker. I therefore propose, Mr. Speaker, and recommend to this Honorable House that we approve the extension to 2021. And this extension does not mean that we are approving everything like curfew and so forth. Remember, we could take away the curfew anytime. But if necessity has it, it can be brought back within the specific period.
Parliamentary Representative for St. Andrew North West, Honourable Dilma Thomas, in supporting the motion for the extension of the emergency powers, said the intention is not to arbitrarily impose restrictions, but to control the spread of the virus.
This extension, Mr. Speaker, is not aimed really at restricting our people. It is painful for our people at this time, Mr. Speaker. And I feel their pain, I feel their suffering in terms of having to further restrict them. But as a government, we do have a responsibility to protect our people. We have that responsibility, Mr. Speaker. Just last night, I met with over 40 young men in Byland, and we spent half of that discussion speaking on the COVID-19 pandemic and the issues that confront them, Mr. Speaker, having to restrict playing football and having to be home very early. And I understand them, Mr. Speaker, and I wish we were at the juncture where we could have removed all this restriction. But it would not be good of us as a government. It will be irresponsible at this time when we are seeing what is happening around us. And while we do not have no active case of the virus in our country, or known case, Mr. Speaker, we can say, because we have Trinidad right there and there's still St. Vincent and we know some of the illegal activities, so we're not sure what is happening at the level of the community. Also, as the vaccination process, Mr. Speaker, while we have seen a number of persons coming forward and get vaccinated, we still have a long way to go. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I believe this is a responsible government trying to protect the citizens of this country.
Also in support of the motion were Parliamentary Representative for St. Mark, Honourable Clarice Modeste Kerwin, and the Leader of the Opposition, Tobias Clement.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think a whole lot needs to be said on this topic because we listen to the news, we hear conversations, and we know beyond any shadow of a doubt that we are still not out of the woods, either nationally or globally, and that COVID is alive and wreaking havoc. And therefore, we need to continue to be vigilant.
Mr. Speaker, I would support, and I have supported, actions that will be responsible for curbing COVID-19 in Grenada.
This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break. Welcome back. Grenada is amending its Immigration Act to provide stiffer penalties for those who breach the provisions of the Act. Prime Minister and Minister for National Security, Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, on Friday, presented the Immigration Amendment Bill 2021 in the House of Representatives. The amendment provides for an increase in the penalty from $10,000 to $12,000. It is also deemed an offence for captains, masters, agents, crew, or passengers to refuse to answer or provide false information when questioned by a competent authority, an offence that could attract a fine of $5,000, 6 months in prison, or both. The bill also seeks to significantly increase the penalty for individuals who knowingly harbor illegal immigrants from $3,000 to $10,000. In presenting the amendment bill, the Prime Minister called for Grenadians to be vigilant, especially at this time when government is working to keep COVID-19 at bay.
Particularly at this time, Mr. Speaker, we have to be, the need for this is so important because in the question of the present regional security apparatus, which guides and supports us in this, it impacts. Only a year ago, I was chairperson of that regional security apparatus. And impacts helps us to track all persons coming into this country, into our individual countries in the region, and advanced information is given. So they should know, if countries want to know always coming on any flight or boat or everything like that that has to report, they certainly will be able, impacts will inform us accordingly. Similarly, someone comes at this time, we had what we've noticed recently, Mr. Speaker, because I don't know what the reason is specifically, but the police is reporting a lot more illegal entry into the country than they ever saw before. And they notice they're coming Venezuela and Colombia. Not a lot of what probably Trinidad would see, but the increase is worrying to us.
Supporting the amendment, Social Development Minister Honorable Delma Thomas expressed concern about recent statistics released by the Royal Grenada Police Force, which point to an increase in illegal immigration. She described the passing of the bill as timely.
The police recently reported that for the first quarter of 2021, law enforcement intercepted 15 illegal immigrants. And this, Mr. Speaker, is the official statistics. As we know with those things, the actual number can be much higher. In normal times, these are dangerous developments. But at this particular time of the COVID-19 pandemic, make this particular matter even worse. There is a theory when your neighbor house, and I said it earlier on, is on fire, we have to wet ours. And so we see what is happening in Trinidad with the Brazilian strain of the virus. And this might be because of illegal activities, because we hear of a number of illegal activities in Trinidad and Tobago. Excuse. We are watching, Mr. Speaker, in real time the consequences of that. Illegal entries in any society have widespread implications, not just for health, but also for national security.
Finally, in the news, non-nationals wishing to reside in Grenada while employed under contractual obligations abroad will be allowed to do so through the establishment of a remote work permit regime. On Friday, members of the House of Representatives passed the Remote Employment Amendment Bill 2021, which gives permission to non-nationals for 1 year to reside in Grenada while working remotely for an overseas company. The permit and program will be managed by the Immigration Department and the Minister responsible for immigration. The bill was presented by Tourism and Civil Aviation Minister Honorable Clarice Modeste Kerwin, who explained that the initiative will assist in generating much-needed revenue to boost economic activities.
The person too must be financially independent so that they don't come to Grenada looking for a job, looking for some source of income. In our case, we have put a minimum or a minimum threshold for $100,000. I think it's EC. I will check that again, Mr. Speaker, but I think it is EC $100,000 per annum. So they must be earning that, and the source must be from outside and not inside our country. So they must have some serious source of income. But people with that kind of income coming into Grenada, we expect them to use proper official accommodation, whatever it is, whether it's a hotel, whether it's an apartment from an apartment building or a single apartment or a downstairs apartment.
Interested individuals can make a single application or include applications for members of their family. The bill outlines that applications must not have intent to operate a business locally and must not enroll their dependents in public schools, among other guidelines.
The individual who wants to come, or the individuals, it can be a couple, it can be a family. The individual can come with his or her dependents, and it can be a spouse, can be a child under the age of 18 years, a person in respect of whom the main applicant or his or her spouse is the legal guardian. A parent or parents of this, any one of the spouses can also accompany them. They must have a health insurance. So while our Ministry of Health or hospitals can provide health care for them, but they must be able to pay for the health care. Everyone, the holder of the permit to work as well as the dependents of that holder.
Sports, Culture and the Arts, Fisheries and Cooperatives Minister Honourable Yolande Bain-Hosford supported the bill. She said everyone stands to benefit.
This initiative would encourage non-nationals to visit our country and stay for up to 1 year intervals and contribute to economic activity in this regard. Mr. Speaker, all segments of the economy would therefore stand to benefit from the aggregated consumption of these non-nationals.
That story just ended the national report for today, Friday, May 21st. Recapping the top story, Prime Minister underscores government's duty to protect the integrity of the Citizenship by Investment program. On behalf of the entire news and production team, I am Rakisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.